First things first, guys. How are you?
Great. You?
Doing good, man.
I'm all right, thanks. What I want to start with is you grew up in Edmonton, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like?
Yeah, we still live there. Ben lives the next town over, but I still live there. It's just a simple, small little town, man. You know, like 1,500 people or so, and I mean, just really, really simple. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to.
I grew up in Glasgow. I didn't live in Edmonton, but it's also, you know, it's bigger than Edmonton, but it's also a small place too. But,
About 10 times the size.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I mean, you know, when we were younger through high school, we practiced every day too. So that's kind of what we devoted a lot of our youth to once the band started.
Because was there a lot of music around in Glasgow and Edmonton?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who play music. And when we started, there were several bands that were playing quite a bit. And then it kind of fell off for a while. Yeah. And then now there's a lot of bands again, but it's a really cool music scene back home because nobody sounds the same. Everybody, it's really an eclectic group of music. There's been a big resurgence in more bluesier music back home recently, but I mean, I think it was one of our biggest advantages was the fact that we weren't from a big city and we didn't have to compete with the other bands. You know, we just kind of got to do whatever we wanted to and left it at that.
And you kind of found your sound and honed your craft before other influences started.
Right.
I think.
Right, like what we just, for us, man, it was just playing the music that we liked. You know, we didn't have to play cover songs or stuff like that. But the day the band started, we wrote an original song. Okay.
Do you still remember that song?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It kind of transformed.
Yeah.
But it was on Folklore and Superstition.
Okay.
It was a song called The Key. And it was way different back in the day, and it was called something different, but it was the same guitar riff and stuff.
We thought it was really heavy. We had that riff.
And well, you say you still live there. So what kept you there?
It's home, man. And I don't know anything else, you know. And I'm not a fan of big cities, really. So I just like staying there. And it's quiet, peaceful. You know, I live more in the country now. Not that Edmonton has a town, but I moved about 4 miles out of what town is. To my grandparents' farm and built a house out there this past year, so it's really peaceful. I love it, man. I mean, it's where I've lived my whole life. I don't know anything else. And
when did the decision come then to kind of go back to that place for this album, for Kentucky?
That came really when we parted ways with Roadrunner, and we were looking at options of recording. We really hadn't thought about it again since we did the first album because, you know, the label wanted us to go to Nashville and then to LA for 2 records. And when it came time to do this record, we were like, man, we're just going to go. We've got all the equipment we could ever need at the studio at home, and the engineer's amazing. Why not go do the record there and just be done with it? You know, there's no need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a record when we can go make this record for, you know, a quarter of the cost of most records.
Do the surroundings, where you are, does that influence a record? For instance, if you would have gone to Los Angeles, would it have been a different record?
I think so.
This one especially. I mean, we've recorded 2 albums in California, you know? But this one, because we wanted to self-produce it, we just wanted to kind of recapture some of that spirit that we had when we did our first, not even our first album, but before that, our first ever demo recordings in a studio were done there. So we kind of wanted to recapture that spirit, you know, and that's the only place we can get that is, you know, is the place that we started.
Was there a feeling that you kind of lost that spirit along the way?
I'm not sure if we lost it.
I think it was suppressed.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of held back to a certain degree because back then it was just going in and recording the songs you wrote. You know, there wasn't anything. There was no magical producer or you know, big time studio or anything. It was just us going to the local studio at home and recording our songs. And it was so nice to get back to that, you know, and not have to look over your shoulder to see if the producer's back there shaking his head saying no, or It was literally just whatever we wanted to do with this record, that's what we did.
And well, you mentioned the changing of labels. Did that help? Did that make it more liberating in a way?
Oh yeah, because like with the new label, the biggest thing we wanted was creative control of the music. You know, we didn't want people at the label telling us how to write our songs or what to write them about. So when we got to do this record, you know, 100% the way we wanted to do it, it was just awesome, man. I mean, it was so just freeing, and I think that's why that spark and that spontaneity is back in the music now.
Because was that something that happened, that labels started to want to have their say, or other people?
Oh yeah, they wanted us to be a radio band, man,
okay.
and that's not what we are.
They can strong arm you sometimes, you know, and put back into a corner to where you really
just write the fucking songs.
You really don't have a lot of, not I want to say, but you know, and to us too, we kind of thought, well, maybe this is what we need to do. Maybe we need to write songs to just for radio success, you know, and. Anymore, we're just kind of not really thinking about writing them for anything except for, you know, how these songs going to sound when we play them live. That's our main concern, is how are people going to react to this song. And at the end of the day, that's the kind of song that's going to stick around.
When was this idea kind of reaffirmed that you didn't want to write for the radio, and that you kind of just wanted to do what you felt was good?
Probably over the last few years, I'd say we've gotten more and more just comfortable and confident on who we are as a band and what we are, who our fans are, who, you know. I think, yeah, over the last little bit, we just kind of learned our place, you know, and we want to just be great at that.
Right. And what was the first song then that you started on that captured this kind of new free spirit that you had when you were just starting out?
The first song we wrote for this record was Hangman, wasn't it?
Yeah, a song called Hangman.
Yeah.
That was one of the first ones, and then along with that was a song, it's a B-side now, called Coyote. And then some of the songs on the album, In Our Dreams, the first single, was a song we wrote in 2010 that we wanted for past albums. You know, for whatever reason, they didn't end up on there, so we're thankful that now we can put it out now. Same thing with a song called Darkest Secret. So there's lots of stuff that we've been able to kind of bring back to the surface now that, you know, we're more in control of the music.
Well, that's the thing, because is that the reason why you chose to revisit these songs? Because now you had a little bit of more creative freedom?
Yeah, I mean, like Ben said, we always wanted those songs on records, you know, 5 and 6 years ago and 3 years ago. But there was always somebody at the record label was like, no, this song's not good enough, it's not going on this album. And you have to pick your battles, man, you know, like, because when you've got A&R guys telling you, no, that song doesn't work for this record, you have to have everybody at the label on board and believing in what you're putting out. So you have to sacrifice songs sometimes. The beautiful thing about our new deal with Mascot is they literally said, make the record you want to make, and we'll put it out. You know, we'll make sure that it's right. Now, you know, when it came time to pick which songs went on the record, it was more of a collaborative effort, but it was still, you know, what we wanted. Sure. And man, we ended up with a great record, and it's because the freedom that we were allowed to have is the biggest contributing factor for me of why the record is as unique as it is.
And when you, for instance, if we take the song In Our Dreams, when you went back to the song, what did you hear in it?
The feeling of that song never really went away.
Okay.
We were so pissed off that we couldn't put it on previous records.
We kept the version on the album is the same version as when we wrote it. Really.
Yeah.
Okay.
We added a vocal part.
Yeah, that's basically it. We were so happy with everything else, the arrangements and everything, that we just kept it the same.
Yeah, the only thing we added was that dueling kind of vocal on the last chorus.
Do you remember where that song originated, where it came from?
We were writing for Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, and we were writing with our buddy Bob Marlette, who had produced Folklore and Superstition. And we were out at his place, and we just wanted to write a really heavy song. And we started, you know, with the guitar parts, and I think within 30 minutes we had the song written and started recording it. Yeah. And that was in 2010. And we loved the song. We thought it should have been on every album since. and it never worked out between us and the record label, and finally we got to let it see the light of day, and lo and behold, Mascot wanted it as a first single.
Right.
So